Hey guys,
I'm Chase.
I'm Jeremiah.
And today this is Trash Talk, and we're going to be talking about a game called Battlefront.
Battlefront?
Battlefront.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, you know that old game that used to be on like the Xbox original?
Oh, I love that game!
Yeah, well they made a really bad reboot.
Oh, and it's called Battlefront?
Yeah.
But they're both called Battlefront.
Yeah. Well, actually, this one's called Battlefront. The previous ones were called Star Wars Battlefront. But anyways, one of the first things you'll notice is Marcelo and Wes are not here. This is going to be the first one where it's just me and Jeremiah. Anyways,
This will be interesting.
Yeah.
To say the very least.
So, EA decided to make a reboot of Star Wars Battlefront, which there was 1 and 2. And it came out in November 17th of 2015. 2015. Sorry, I'm getting a little mixed up. And they decided to take a really different turn with it.
Really different.
Yeah, so usually, I mean, they give it sort of like a Battlefield-y feel, because it's EA, you know.
Yeah,
but
most of us sort of expected that, to be honest.
Yeah, so, yeah, exactly. The moment you knew EA was making it, you knew, okay, this is not going to be anything like the original.
Well, like, the moment you know DICE was, like, making it, like,
yeah,
even,
exactly.
Not even just EA, like, DICE, too, because they're directly related to Battlefield.
Yeah, so, now that we kind of gotten the summary out of the game out of the way, let's first go into story.
There is none.
No. However, there is a single-player mode. There's, like a survival mode, actually, where you can go in and... It's sort of like its version of... maybe
Horde mode?
Yeah, Horde mode, Nazi zombies kind of thing, where, like, there's waves, and you're a rebel.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have troopers, you know, like the clone troopers coming in, and you have to... And then every wave, it gets harder and harder, you know, sometimes they'll call in an ATST, stuff like that. So, there is a single-player mode. It's just not a campaign per se.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of this we're sort of expecting. There isn't really any story mode. There's no, like, galactical conquest or anything.
No.
Which is pretty unfortunate, because this game had a lot of potential to make a really good story.
Especially with how big of a thing Star Wars is. Now, that being said, even in the multiplayer, they did reference the maps to historical events from the movies. For example, the Battle of Hoth. Right? So, of course, if the rebels win, it's not necessarily that's not what happened in the movies, of course.
Yeah.
The Empire won that battle, but at least they're accurate to things that have happened in the universe. But yeah, based on actual story, there isn't anything. It's just multiplayer shoot 'em mostly. You know?
It's sort of an unfortunate thing. It's not necessarily something that breaks or makes the game, but it's just unfortunate, because it had a lot of potential to do something. Even if it was just straight up just sort of, like, not even coming up with the original story, sort of like taking stuff from the original content of Star Wars, the prequels, and the original, and even the new movie, and sort of just putting you in those scenarios in a big story. Would have been nice, but they didn't. But in terms of it being a Star Wars game, that actually does it pretty damn well.
Yeah. So, next is the gameplay. So of course we already talked a little bit about the single player mode and how that works, but of course the game is mostly a multiplayer based game. Like I said, it sort of resembles a little bit of kind of a Battlefield-y kind of game. Of course, being made by EA in the Frostbite engine, it's gonna sort of resemble that. However, of course you got all kinds of blasters, you have different kinds of power-ups that you can find on the field. You know, there's like little tokens basically that you can find where by running into them, you can get, those missile launchers, maybe thermal grenades. You can turn into a Jedi through them.
Yeah, it's got sort of like an arcade system. In fact, to go back just a little bit, I feel like the best way to compare it is Battlefield, but it's also not really like Battlefield. It's not like Battlefront. It's kind of its own thing, and to be completely honest, it's not very special. In fact, it's kind of a dumber down version of
both.
I guess, yeah, like, because, like, there's no real classes. The only thing you go in, if I recall, you've played it more than me, is you get, like, 2 or 3 cards that you have to unlock to give yourself items. Yeah. There's not necessarily classes, and they do have vehicles and even other features that are unique to the game, but, like you said, they're tokens on the ground that you have to find.
Power-ups, more or less.
Rather than actually physically being there.
Unlike the past Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2, where there would be like docking stations. You'd have to actually walk up and get into the vehicle. That's no longer the case.
And even in the Battlefield games, which a lot of people like to compare it to, the same deal. The vehicles are on there. Sometimes you can even spawn into them in a queue. But they're just not existing. That's the thing. The game looks really realistic, and then they just have these sort of icons around the map. Kind of breaks the immersion a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely kind of adds more of an arcade-ish feel to it. However, the game does a pretty good job, like you said, of visually looking very stunning.
Oh, yeah.
Which sort of gets into the aesthetics, as well as the sound quality of the game is very impressive too. So there are definitely some things about Star Wars Battlefront that are really good, that they did a great job on. But they also miss a lot of key things, especially another thing, being a reboot of Battlefront, they decided to take out a lot of the features that were in the originals that just they are not even here anymore. For example, space battles, which was a huge implementation in Star Wars Battlefront 2.
I love space battles.
Yeah. And it's just gone, you know. Why'd they do that? Or another thing is, they used to have NPC fights where you'd have like 100 on 100 or something like that. Crazy huge armies.
Oh yeah.
No more bots at all. No bots whatsoever. It's completely fully multiplayer. However, the maps are still pretty big. Not so big, but big enough that they can still support, I think, teams of 32 each or something like that. And
which is a lot.
It still feels like a big battle. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, like it's a pretty big battle, but like it's not really compared to like the past games where like it's just a huge battle. Like you feel like you're there because there's both other players and AIs running around. Just this huge, many targets. I don't know. It's just way more immersive and grand. This is still big, but just much smaller in comparison.
Yeah. One of the things about the gameplay that I don't like is how they did the vehicles in Battlefront 2. Flying was very easy. It was to take control, see where you're going, shoot the enemies you needed to. Where in Battlefront, they kind of added like a Battlefield flying mechanic where it's, and you know how hard it is to fly in Battlefield. People are always crashing in those things. Same thing in Battlefront. It's clunky. It's hard to turn. You go way too fast over the map. Even when you're going super slow, you're going so fast over the map that it's hard to see anything, or you just kind of miss. It's pretty much only for dogfighting. If you try to do anything else, at least for me, it's nearly impossible. However, the ground vehicles do a pretty good job. So that's what that is. Okay, so now as we got into the aesthetics, how it graphically looks very stunning, really realistic. It really feels like you're there in the battle. It looks like Star Wars. So they did get that right. No. It looks like Star Wars, really much so.
If you're a Star Wars fan and you're coming to this game, I guarantee you will enjoy it. Now, you might not enjoy it for a long time, as we were saying, the gameplay is not really that great. But like aesthetically and visually, you feel like you're in Star Wars. Like just the sound and the graphics and the environments. Like I forget the name of the technique they use, but they used some sort of new technique where they were able to like accurately recreate locations from the films by using like the footage of the films. I forget what it's called. I don't know. It might be displayed here. But yeah, that's a pretty cool technique. So they definitely spent a lot of time on that
to really give you the feel that you're there in the world of Star Wars. You know, like we said, the gameplay was kind of hit and miss. Like kind of felt a little arcadey with the tokens and power-ups. However, what was there, in my opinion, was fairly polished. It was well done. The biggest letdown in terms of gameplay for me was just it was a huge lack of content for a $60 game.
Yeah.
They had a decent amount of game modes to choose from, 10, 12, but each game type only had 2-3 maps to play, and in total there was only about 5 or 6 maps, and there's not that many guns. Because you have a rank up system, and as you rank up, you unlock new things. So you say in cards, these cards you have a loadout, because there's no classes like the previous Battlefronts. It's all loadout, sort of like a Call of Duty, Battlefield-y looking kind of thing.
Keep in mind, this is a like first-person, third-person shooter game.
Yeah, you can switch between the two
and there's
modes.
only 11 weapons, only 11, and most of them are pretty much the same.
They're pretty similar. Like this one, and
That's
actually,
that's I don't know. That's, take it as you will. That's pretty disappointing for any shooter game.
yeah.
When that's the main focus.
So I mean, is what it is, you know. So next we're gonna move on to the soundtrack, which sort of plays into the sound we were talking about earlier. Is that the soundtrack? Of course, I mean it's Star Wars. You get a lot of Star Wars soundtracks from the movies. It doesn't really. They didn't really seem to add too much new sort of soundtrack.
Yeah.
Maybe remastered it a little bit, but
I mean, it's really good. The sound is really good. It feels like Star Wars. However, I do feel like he was saying, it's sort of fair to point out that that sort of comes easy from a Star Wars title. They don't necessarily have to create new music.
exactly. They basically have everything already. They just got to go copy paste. Boom. Oh, it's in the game now. You know,
Which is fine.
yeah.
which
The
is fine.
soundtracks are amazing. It's just they didn't really reinvent new ones, more or less. So
But yeah, no, I mean the sound, it was good. It's very good.
yeah, and then characters.
Talk about the
Again,
heroes.
because it's not really stories. What?
I said, well, 'cause like he was trying
Yeah.
to say, there's not really characters because again, there's not really story. You're not necessarily a character. You're just, your model fighting the
Yeah.
battle. But there are heroes, which is a unique thing that they did carry from the previous Battlefields, at least, or Battlefront. We're just talking so much about Battlefield.
Battlefront 2, where they implemented, because Battlefront 1 didn't have
Heroes,
the heroes.
No.
It was Battlefront 2 that implemented.
which was amazing and very unique, not even just to the game, but to Star Wars in general. Because you're playing these Star Wars characters.
And of course, this is also a pop-up on the game where you pick up a little coin. It looks
Yeah.
sort of like one that has like a little lightsaber going through it, and that's how you know it's a hero. And it lets you pick between 2 or 3, depending on what map you're on, between Jedis and Sith, such as Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Palpatine. You have Han Solo,
Leia,
Leia,
and Boba Fett.
and Boba Fett. Yeah, so not all of them are Jedis, which is cool, and they all have unique abilities, just like they did in Battlefront 2. So I guess that's cool. You know how the Jedis have saber throw, or they can shoot lightning and force choke.
Which is so much fun.
Yeah, well, Boba Fett has the jetpack, which you can actually give yourself to the regular characters, but it's not really like controllable like Boba Fett's is. It's just like it's
He's
more
a
of a jump.
professional.
It's more of a jump pack where you just kind of launch off, which can be really good for the objective style games because it can get you a long distance fairly quickly or escaping the enemy. So in terms of that, you also have different character models, so like a customization where you can make yourself look different. For example, instead of being the traditional stormtrooper, as you level up in the game and unlock new things, you can be a Twi'lek, right, or one of the scout snipers, or some of the various other aliens that exist in the Star Wars universe. So that gives it a little bit of customization.
Though it does take a while to get those. Like you have to grind and play a lot of games, which can be hard when, again, like you're saying, the gameplay is not very rewarding. Like it's fun for maybe a few hours and then you get bored.
So max level is, I think, roughly 50. And of course, that doesn't sound bad, you can do it, but when there's only a few game types to play, it gets rather boring pretty quickly. So I personally have the game, the reason I don't have the box art to show you is because I have the Origin version, the digital download. But I enjoyed it, my friend and I played it together, and for a while we had a lot of fun. What was there, like I said, it's missing a lot of content, and that's generally one of its biggest flaws, but I did enjoy playing with my friend for a while, but it did get bored. I did get bored really quickly because there's just not enough content there to keep you entertained. However, EA has been trying to fix that a little bit with some free updates, such as private matches and extra maps and stuff, which should have already been in the game for the start, but at least they recognized their issue and are giving you this stuff out for free to help make it at least a little better and a little bit more variety to the game.
Yeah. Now, another thing I kind of want to talk about, because I feel like this is pretty relevant to this game, is, again, we're talking about a game made by EA. And, well, it's EA, and you know how they are with their games. So, of course, once the game came out, they already have a DLC pack, a season pass for all their DLC, which was like $50.
It was, $50 or $60.
Which a lot of people complained about this, so I don't want to go too much into it because it's, everybody's ever reviewed this brings this up. It is a pretty crappy thing. I mean, considering how little we got in the game, now we're expected to pay more money, almost the amount of a
Double.
whole nother game.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you buy the digital, whatever edition it was, the limited edition, where it was like $70 instead of $60. That's like $120 altogether.
Yeah, $60 version, the $70 version, and then they had the $120 version, which is the deluxe plus the season pass. So.
Which is a lot of money to ask, and we don't even know what it's going to be in the edition. That's another thing. People don't know what's in the DLC. People were sort of expected to buy it without knowing. As far as you know, it could make the game so much better, or it could just do nothing, just add a few basic maps or something.
And then there it is, exactly. So
yeah, like, I guess overall the game is not as great as it should be. I mean, if they're going to use the license of Battlefront, I expected so much more, not just from that, but also from Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think what hurts it more is the price. Is just how much they're asking.
If you're gonna
asking
exactly.
for it.
If you're gonna give less, then you should ask for less too. Don't ask for a gigantic amount of sum for an amount of content that's just not there. Like I said, what's there is actually pretty decent and polished, and it works well for the most part.
It's just not worth $60.
It's just not enough to be worth the $60. So what it comes down to, the game is far from perfect, but it is definitely not the worst game on the planet.
I'd say if you're a Star Wars fan, especially if you're a big one, even if you're a Battlefront fan, it might not be the same. I'd recommend you try it. It might be fun in small doses, but honestly, if you're not that big of a Star Wars fan, I would just avoid it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really not worth it.
Also, wait until you can kind of get a good deal on it. Like we just said, $60 is quite a lot. Even $60 is quite a lot for this game when there's just not a lot to it.
Yeah.
So if you get it maybe half off or so,
you know, it might be better.
Okay.
Yeah, like
so,
it wouldn't be that bad if it's like $40. You know, it's kind of the price of like a arcade game, which kind of feels like. So that seems a little more fair.
Yeah. So, what is your final verdict on Star Wars Battlefront?
I guess overall, I probably give it a 2 out of 5, to be honest.
Okay.
That's me being a little more against the game. I don't know, because the sound and aesthetically, it's great. But honestly, you didn't really see it much. I wasn't trying to be that emotional in this video, but I'm pretty pissed at this game. I don't really like it. I actually was very disappointed with it. Not just as a Battlefront game and a Star Wars game, but in a game in general. I was so excited when I heard they were working on it, and then this turned out, and it's just in its current state. Even with some of its helps, I just don't think it's that very good. Probably like 2 out of 5.
So I'll probably be a little nicer and give it a 3 out of 5. Like I said, I played it with some friends. It was fairly enjoyable, but it just got boring pretty quickly. And like I said, what's there isn't bad. It just needed a lot more, not necessarily work on what's there, just more to it, more content that should have been there that just wasn't. Like I said, they did make a few attempts to fix that, but it's... Anyways, so, I mean, that's Star Wars Battlefront.
Hopefully they do better than the next one.
Yeah, because...
Yeah, they're working on another one. It's EA. You know they are.
Yeah.
You know they are.
Alright, so anyways, I'm Chase.
I'm Jeremiah.
And this was Trash Talk.
See ya. Four scores!
We're recording
2 games ago.
Hold on.
I know it's a blooper.
That's a blooper.
Oh, sorry, I forgot you have to do the timer.
Timer. Ready?